I'm John Ruby. I was born in Sarnia, Ontario. Due to circumstances, I was given up for adoption when I was about 2 years old. I was adopted into a beautiful Christian home. My dad was in Bible school in Moody in Chicago, and then we moved to Toronto and then into the mission field in Indonesia. Leaving the mission field after about a decade of service, we moved to Toronto and then Sudbury for a couple of years, and then my dad landed a pastor job when I was in grade 10 right here in Ottawa. I had a lot of inner tension and turmoil inside, moving over and over and over again, trying to fit into a very cliquish, suburban, upper middle class community. Just felt like I didn't fit in, and that was kind of the underlying tension inside of my heart my whole life. I just didn't feel like I belonged. And when I hit grade 11, and with all the rules and structures that come by being a pastor's kid and having your parents in full-time ministry, I found alcohol for the first time. As soon as I drank for that first time, I was thinking about drinking again. I didn't care about the consequences. The tension inside subsided, but the tension at home grew because I was breaking all the rules of being a pastor's kid. Over the course of high school, I got kicked out a few times, got in some fights, and I was excused from school for the second time. Shortly after, I tried to get my high school credits, but I failed. It was right about that time where I was introduced to a drug called MDMA. This just opened up a whole new level of partying, and I tried it for the first time, and I went to this little party in a warehouse, and I met all of my best friends that I never had known before, and I was just like, this is where I belong. This is what real family is. And over the course of the next few years, I got into legal trouble. I lost my license drinking and driving, ended up doing 4 times in jail. And by the time I was 32 years old, I was going for 3 5-day benders. I couldn't hold down my job. I missed my son's 9th birthday, and I missed my wife's 30th birthday.
At a certain point, I realized I couldn't live in addiction. Things had escalated pretty quickly. I think the thing about when people are using alcohol or substances, it can go from being manageable to being unmanageable real quick. The descent was drastic. And within a matter of a couple weeks, 3 unrelated people told me that I actually wasn't safe and that I needed to get my kids out of there, and John wouldn't leave. So I packed up the house. I put it all in storage, tried to figure out what I was going to do next.
I was left with the impression that I am hurting people so bad, I don't want to be here anymore. I didn't want to hurt myself, but I just didn't want to live. So I went on a bender to not wake up. I was about 6 months into this bender trying to end it all, and I was in a parking lot. I had crashed a couple cars. I had not been home for months. I hadn't been eating. It all gets blurry in that time, and I had this vision that happened to me. It wasn't one of those drug-induced ones. It wasn't paranoia. It was crystal clear, and I saw 4 pictures. I heard the words that as you were abandoned and abused, that's what you're doing to the ones you love. I had faced for the first time that my deepest pain, my deepest hurt was this abandonment. And in that moment, I saw 4 pictures. I saw a picture of me dying a violent death. I saw another picture being in a jail cell for what seemed like a long time. I saw another picture of a white padded room in a straitjacket. And then I saw another picture, and it was like when a TV goes fuzzy. I felt compelled to pick the one with the static picture. And I believe that was the first time that I made a decision to turn my life into something else, a different path, a different way of living. And I went to my dad to ask him, I'm ready to change, what can I do? And so he directed me to a man that did ministry right down here. And I talked to him, and he just said, here's a place that you can go. It's called the Ottawa Mission. That was my starting point. I got into what they call stabilization. I had this time of about a month to be able to get my head back together, to be able to start to make a decision on what direction I wanted to go in. And so I got to that realization that the problem was within me and I need a new solution. And they said, to get out of here, you need a relationship with God. And I grew up in the church. I grew up as a missionary kid, and I just thought that was foreign and a bizarre concept because I didn't realize, I couldn't put the connection together on how God would be able to get me out of here. God was a set of rules. God was a place to go to on a Sunday. I didn't ever know a personal relationship with God. And here in this treatment center, they nurtured me to be able to investigate what it's like to have a relationship with God that will solve my problem. One day I was on the street corner waiting for the bus to come on a busy downtown street, and I see on the telephone pole, I see a sign, and it's got a big question mark with a guy holding it with all of his effort, and below it says Jesus. And I said, hey, that's kind of what I grew up with. Why don't I investigate that? Tore the little number off, called the number, and I joined Alpha. I was still downtown and it still didn't change my circumstances, but I was changing on the inside. And I started going to the church, and my wife started talking to me again.
He would call me from rehab and he would tell me about the things that he was doing, and I wasn't at that point really interested in getting back together with him. He had actually signed the house over to me. He signed a power of attorney. That's the place that he was at when he went to rehab. And he would tell me about things he was learning, and then he started telling me about this church he was going to, and he asked if I would bring the kids on Sunday, which was kind of weird, but I said okay. So I would bring the kids to church.
I just invited her to church. I don't think she could believe that I would be going to church, and she gathered the kids and we went to church together, and we sat there and listened, and I was just able to receive, but I didn't really have to do anything to change, and that's the beautiful thing about this relationship. This relationship that I have is changing me from the inside, changing my thinking, changing my heart inside of me, removing the tension, removing the hurt and the fears that were running my life. God really, His perfect love casts out fear. So I didn't really have to do anything to change, just be in relationship with Him. And through the power of His Holy Spirit, He just removed all of those fears and all of that tension, and He has now become my new solution.
I think there was just something so fascinating about the fact that he was just doing all these things. It was obvious he wasn't doing it to prove anything to me. He was really interested in God and just in what was happening. So he did come home after rehab.
And here I am leaving treatment, the core downtown of Ottawa. My wife, God bless her, she took me back. I'm reunited with the family and quickly thrown into the responsibility and the tension of home life and the responsibilities. And I'm sober now. I really was working in my recovery to get this relationship with God that I found in this treatment center.
He pursued God really quite drastically. It was really surprising. He was reading his Bible every morning. I would come downstairs and he was at the table reading his Bible, looking to learn. He's never stopped learning and wanting to be closer to God. He's so different. I can't even describe how different he is, because he's just, it's like a whole bunch of stuff just fell away. Anger and frustration, and it's really God in him.
One of the places that I volunteered, a men's ministry, the founder asked me if I wanted a job as an overnight supervisor. And that became my new job. I learned more from doing this job on how to love, and God was rewriting my script of what it means to work, what it means to be a man, what it means to have an income. And over the course of that year, the founder asked me to develop the addiction side of things, and so I did that for the next 9 years. Over the course of time, God just started getting my heart a little restless of how do we get these guys to connect into the church and be the church. Over the next year, we planted Union City Church in 2016. Our goal is to restore hope and bring freedom to those in early recovery. And so we bring in the Bible and go through the Bible in simple teachings and connect people to the Word of God and to the power of God. And our goal is to connect people in community, in the church, and ultimately with the heart of God. We developed a social enterprise. So it's a kombucha business, the nectar of heaven. I would say it's a fermented tea, it's a health product, and it's all volunteer based. So we have guys and girls, early recovery, some we can employ some people, but most are volunteers. It gets people connected and helping out. We call it booching the gap. And out of that, the commercial end of it supports the social end of it, and it goes by the brand name of Ashes to Rubies, where we have all of our addiction recovery support tools. We host a workshop online and in person to lead people into their own recovery.
And he pursues God actually more than he pursues me. And so as a result of that, our marriage has gotten better. He's just intentional about everything that he does. He really just wants people to know that they're loved.
What I've come to realize is the way that I was living my life through my pain and my hurt and my separation from God was just a pile of rubble, a pile of ashes. But the beautiful thing is that God can turn your ashes into beauty. He can turn your ashes into rubies.